Kirby Smart is in his bag right now, as Georgia just landed two big-time players from the college football transfer portal in tight end Arik Gilbert and former Clemson cornerback Darion Kendrick. Now, you look at Arik Gilbert, this guy has had a really interesting transfer portal experience, to say the least. He transferred out of LSU, transferred to Florida, then re-entered the transfer portal, leaving Florida now to join their rival, the Georgia Bulldogs. When you look at Arik Gilbert, this guy is a freak. He's 6'5", 253 pounds, and he's like your new hybrid tight end. He can play tight end, but he also can play wide receiver as well. He was the 5th best player nationally coming out that 2020 recruiting class out of high school, where he was a 5-star recruit. And I'm really excited to see what Arik Gilbert is going to do for the University of Georgia, because his skill set reminds me a lot of Kyle Pitts in terms of how Georgia could utilize him. Yes, you can line him up at tight end, but you also can line him up at wide receiver, where he could be a mismatch for cornerbacks because he's really big. This guy is physical and he moves really fast for his size. Remind you, this guy is 6'5", 253 pounds. He may be even bigger than that. On top of that, okay, you bring in cornerback Darion Kendrick. Now, pre-spring, corner was a big issue of concern for Georgia Bulldog fans out there, because you lost both Eric Stokes and Tyson Campbell to this past year's NFL draft. On top of that, you lost Tyreek Stevenson, who entered the transfer portal and ended up going to Miami. So you bring in the All-American from West Virginia. Now you bring in Darion Kendrick. Now, with Darion Kendrick, this was a guy who was second team All-ACC in 2019. And in 2020, he was first team All-ACC. So you're getting a really good corner. On top of that, I think that Georgia, with the addition of Darion Kendrick, their defense now pretty much doesn't really have any major issues of concern. I think Georgia, for right now, probably would be my pick to not only win the SEC, but I also think that they have a better shot at winning the national championship this year than what a lot of people are giving them credit for, because I've been seeing a lot of people ride that Oklahoma bandwagon. Everybody thinks Oklahoma's going to win the national championship, which I can understand why, because everybody's really excited about that defense. On top of that, you have Spencer Rattler returning this year, so I understand the optimism. But pre-spring, Georgia was my pick to not only win the SEC, but to win the national championship. Now, obviously, spring came around and my perception changed, because you had a couple of injuries, like the George Pickens. So my view of Georgia kind of changed a little bit. You also had the concerns at corner, because at that time during spring camp for Georgia, your most experienced corner probably was Amir Speed. So now you look at Georgia, they addressed their cornerback concerns in the transfer portal. On top of that, you add another weapon for JT Daniels and Arik Gilbert. This is a Georgia team that, to me, may be the most talented team in all of college football. And I understand I'm going to get a lot of pushback from that. I do understand that it is very early. I hate the fact that we kind of have the transfer portal. I don't hate the fact that players are allowed to transfer, things like that, but it kind of makes it hard for me as a content creator, because I want to talk about college football content more. That's been one of my biggest emphasis for this year, was spreading out to more college football off-season talk, because I normally just talk about college football during the regular season, but I kind of have my college football content on hold right now, because I don't want to make a video about a certain team and then they end up losing a big-time player to the transfer portal, or they end up receiving a big-time player to the transfer portal. So I'm kind of trying to stretch it out to see the last wave of the transfer portal play itself out. But I'm really high on Georgia this year. I was high on Georgia last year. I feel like if Georgia had JT Daniels played for the whole entire season, or even Jamie Newman, I feel like they would have beaten Alabama, and I felt like they probably would have won that SEC last year. Now, I know that's, special thinking on my part, but I was really high on Georgia. I really do. I really feel like quarterback really held back Georgia up until JT Daniels took over the starting job, to that point of them being a championship team. Now, you look at JT Daniels this year, he's the best quarterback in the SEC as of right now, and you look at how that offense is going to be looking, even with the injuries that they've had to guys like George Pickens, you still have a really good roster, and Georgia recruits better than pretty much the majority of the teams in college football. They consistently have top 3, top 5 recruiting classes year in and year out, so I'm not really concerned about the guys who they're going to have in trying to fill the role of George Pickens and whatnot, because Georgia is a football factory. I think they're going to have more than enough talent to make up for George Pickens' absence, even though George Pickens is a little bit of a loss there because he's one of the best wide receivers in all of college football. But I definitely think that Georgia has way more than enough talent to be able to still have some good play at wide receiver. On top of that, you look at the versatility that Gilbert brings you. You can line him up at tight end sometimes. You can line him up outside. You can put him in the slot in certain scenarios. Like, this guy is a matchup nightmare for opposing defensive backs, because if you are a corner, okay, this is a guy who's 6'5". I think he may be bigger than 6'5". He looks to be 6'6". This is a guy who essentially is a 6'6", 6'5" tight end playing wide receiver, who also runs really well for his size. This guy has incredible athleticism. So on top of that, you have to worry about that. And then for linebackers, he's going to be too fast for a majority of linebackers to cover. So really, how are you supposed to defend this behemoth of a man? Essentially, this guy pretty much is Wolverine at tight end, and we're starting to see these new kind of hybrid tight ends like Kyle Pitts and Arik Gilbert emerge, because having a tight end with the skill set that Arik Gilbert possesses not only can change the offense, but it also can make it very tough on the opposing team's defense, because having a dominant tight end in today's football, college football, in the NFL, can really change the outcome of a game, because there really isn't a way that you could game plan to stop them. For like, what are you going to do? Are you going to try to double team them? Like, who you going to double team them with? A safety? That's not going to work. A linebacker? That's not going to work neither. So when you have a tight end that possesses this skill set that Gilbert has, is going to cause a lot of problems for opposing teams' defensive coordinators. There pretty much isn't nothing you can do to stop a guy like Arik Gilbert. Like, once this guy gets going, it's pretty much it. This guy can have a drastic say-so and certain outcomes of games. Then you look at Darion Kendrick. He's 6 foot even, 190 pounds. He's definitely going to bring some talent to that cornerback room for Georgia. So I look at Georgia right now, and even though I'm still not making my predictions yet, I'm still trying to hold off my predictions. As of right now, Georgia is my pick to win the SEC. And I know Bama fans are going to disagree and whatnot, but I strongly feel like Georgia has the best team in the SEC, and I feel like they have a roster that probably should be competing for the college football national championship. On top of that, if you want to add some more drama to this, Darion Kendrick came from Clemson. Guess who Georgia plays early this season? Clemson. So if you want to add some more drama to that, so let me know what you guys think about the recent transfers that Georgia has landed from the college football transfer portal, and tight end Arik Gilbert and cornerback Darion Kendrick. Do you guys feel like these transfers now make Georgia the presumed favorite to win the SEC? Or do you think another team is still going to be able to win the SEC over Georgia?